Get ready for the exciting conclusion to the Jordan of Algoran Series, coming up next right here on The Right Stuff. Showcasing Christian authors from all over the world: England, Canada, India, Thailand, UK, USA. It's Tuesday night, and this is The Right Stuff with your host, the Queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. Coles. Hi, and welcome to another edition of The Right Stuff. I'm the Queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. Thank you so very much for being here with me today. I'm so excited to showcase to you the third book in the Jordan of Algoran series called Jordan's Deliverance with my guest co-host, Allen Steadham. He is the author of that series, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to share it with you in just a few moments. I want to also thank our corporate sponsor, Christian Book Club, for their support. To find out more about them, simply go to their website, christianbookclub.net. Go ahead and find out how you can build your readership with their resources. We also want to thank our partner, Radio App. If you're looking to place your Christian books on an app solely dedicated to Christian fiction and nonfiction, the Radio App is for you. Go to radioapp.com and find out how you can upload your book, and you will get paid royalties when someone buys your book from that app. We also want to thank our Patreon team for their support of this ministry. We do showcase Christian authors from all over the world and have been doing that now for 7 years, God willing, going on 8 years next year. So prayerfully consider if this is a ministry that you want to support. You can become a PIN member at $10 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/writestuff to find out more information. Today's show is pre-recorded, so we won't be taking any live calls. So gather your friends and family as we talk about Jordan's Deliverance. You can listen in at this number, 646-668-8485, or the link at the bottom of the show description. Can't wait to tell you more about Jordan's Deliverance. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Christian authors and writers, welcome to Radio. Radio app, developed exclusively for showcasing Christian fiction and nonfiction ebooks and audiobooks. Tired of book sales plummeting due to algorithm-influenced unrelated classifications? Books lost amongst non-Christian content? Radio allows you to reach your target audience who's eager to devour your Most High God-inspired books in a variety of Christian subgenres. You write in a niche market. Radio solely caters to it. Follow at Radio App today on social media or visit radioapp.com to know when we are accepting author catalog uploads. Radio, the best app for the most high-influence ebooks and audiobooks.
We're back with the Queen of Tuesday night and her guest. Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. Again, so very glad you're here with me today as I chat with my returning guest, co-host and contributor, Allen Steadham. He is the author of the series Jordan of Algoran, and today we're going to be showcasing the exciting conclusion, Jordan's Deliverance, which just released today. So it is hot off the press. I want to thank Ambassador International for the connection because I have been enjoying reading their authors' books. They have a high caliber of fiction that I know you are going to enjoy. So if you want to get more where that came from, go to ambassador-international.com. Again, ambassador-international.com. Look at their catalog and find out what all the fuss is about. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest co-host and contributor today, Allen Steadham. Allen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Parker. Thanks for having me back on.
And thank you so much for having me do the third book of this series. You know how much I enjoyed it because I hit you on PM, was just like telling you my thoughts and impressions and just how wonderful this whole series has been. And I like the fact that my indignation is now gone as I understand why these aliens were taking people off of planet Earth and literally dumping them on another planet. So I remember still being mad about that for 2 books. And now that that is solved and resolved in this book. Just the wonderful tale, the story arc of our main character, her whole life and what she has to do, and then the exciting conclusion at the end. There's so much going on in this story, and you were able to bring a lot of threads together within this series and conclude them in a nice package. So it wasn't like you were going off the deep end and, oh, wow, we can't figure what happened here, or wow, we can't figure out what happened here. You actually brought it all together with that exciting thing of letting us know there may be more to the story. It's just this arc is done and there may be more. So kudos to you for that on this series. So
Thank you.
Definitely looking forward to talking with you about it. So let's just dig right in. But first, as always, I always want to make sure that people know who you are. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Allen Steadham. I am a Christian fiction author. I mainly do speculative fiction. I have done this is my fourth book. First book was Mindfire, which was a superhero thriller, but then we've got this trilogy of the Jordan of Algoran series. I'm from Texas. I'm happily married for 25 years. We have 3 kiddos. And I just love writing for the Lord, and I really depend on His inspiration to weave these tales, and exciting and fascinating for me as it is for you, the readers. So I feel very blessed to be able to do what I do.
One thing I like that you said is the Holy Spirit directs you as you write. And that's something I think is very important for those of us who write Christian fiction, to know that we don't have to do it all on our own, that He gives us the tools. And in Jordan of Algoran Series, you took this very interesting premise, this very interesting world, and you spread it out throughout these 3 books, and you see the hand of the Lord working together, even in the midst of things that are just horrifying and terrible. Like I said, in the beginning of the series in Jordan's world, Jordan is taken from her world in Colorado and literally thrown onto another planet. I mean, that's literally what happened. She's thrown on another planet, her and her mom. Guess what? And then they leave. And I remember being so angry. Like I said, I was really angry for 2 books. Like, I highly invested in the series. And I'm like, why did they just pick up these people and throw them there? I'm not kidding when I say they threw them there. They pick them up, threw them on a planet, and left. That's all that happened. And you're sitting there going, what gives you the right to do that? And so there's that almost like a righteous indignation that I have for 2 books of, what gives you the right to do that? And then when you find out what happens in Jordan's Deliverance, which I'm not going to tell you, when you find that out, you go, are you kidding me? You're sitting there literally like, are you kidding me? And then the righteous indignation boils up again. You're saying. So this is why you felt it was okay to do this. So there's a lot going on in here. We are going to do our best not to do spoilers, or big spoilers anyway. It's difficult, though, because I've read all 3 of these books. I've really become invested in this world. I told Alan offline, I said, I can't wait to see what else you do with this world, because there's so much material here. So I'm really excited to showcase it to our listeners out here. Book 3, we follow Jordan for the last, I want to say 50 years. So she's 50 years in this time frame. So she's an older woman, but not quite, because the events that happen in book 2 keep her young. And what are some of the thought processes that she's experiencing with this seemingly eternal youth that she has?
Well, and it really started in book 1, because Jordan was injured, and she received basically a blood transfusion from this legendary Snowfire figure. And Snowfire is a huge influence on the world of Algoran, because she's a part of the Makta mythology, and people know and fear her name around the entire world. All these cultures have heard of, because Snowfire really was a person. She's a spirit called the Makta call her the spirit of the mountain, but she actually on a humanoid form. But when she did that, she also took on human emotions, and she's kind of crazy. So she was going around, and if anybody basically threatened the Makta, then she would go and either take out vengeance on them or even just wipe them out. And so people fear her. But she's immortal. And so when she saves Jordan and gives her a blood transfusion in Jordan's world, it changes Jordan. Now, there's some question, I left that open-ended, as to whether or not Jordan is just long-lived or whether she's actually immortal. But basically, in the time jump, actually within book 2, a 40-year jump, we find out that Jordan only looks like maybe 5 years older, even though a total of 50 years have passed. So she's definitely not aging like everybody else, basically. And so there's a downside to that, which is introduced in Jordan's era, which is essentially she's going to have to watch everybody that she knows grow older and die, and she's barely aging at all. So there's a great burden that comes with that. And she does her best to live with it and get used to it, but it's still a burden. And it really weighs on her, by book 3, because she's basically, if she were normal mortal, she would be almost 70 years old now. But she looks like 25, and she's talking to the elders of the village because she's the chiefess, and she's like, I'm only like 15 years younger than you, right? It's like she's dealing with mortality and immortality at the same time, and that's just something that most people wouldn't be able to relate to. But I thought it was an interesting dilemma for her to have, and not just her, but Erica has it as well, because Snowfire gave her blood as well. Book 3 really deals a lot more with how people deal with the passage of time, and that was fascinating too. It was kind of sad, but it's also, I felt, was real. I was grateful that was something that got to be brought forward with, different characters' perspectives on it.
One thing I noticed as I was reading about Jordan, I remember, I think a year and a half ago, I found 2 gray hairs in my head, and I nearly lost it. I didn't have like an attack or anything, but I was looking in the mirror and I was like, what in the world is that? I remember looking at that, and just this terror came over me. Not real terror, but it's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting old. That's the first thing I thought. And then, of course, I put on my Facebook, because I usually derive, so many people on Facebook sometimes help you really work things out, especially brothers and sisters in Christ. And they say, where's the gray hair? It was with pride. It's a crown. And then I thought about it. I said, well, there's some people who wish they had gray hair and wasn't in the grave. And so I was able to kind of work through that. But with Jordan, imagine she looked in the mirror and she only saw the youthfulness of her face. And it's been 40 years. And she only sees just a little bit of change, but she's still youthful. But she's not a youthful person. She's a woman with a lot of experience for the last 40 years. And I was thinking about how brilliant it was that you show this long life in a sober life, because even though she has this long life and she doesn't age, she has these thoughts like, oh my gosh, I may outlive my husband, I may outlive my friends, I may outlive this. And it's a sobering thought. So even though you have this long life element, not everyone else has it around you. And that's something that really heavily weighs on her. And I wanted to talk about that, because we often, nowadays, there are scientists and people looking to extend our life in certain ways. And we're not talking like pacemakers and machinery like that. We're just talking about people like, we want to stop aging. I said, but would you really want to stop aging in this world that is so messed up? So tell us a little bit about your thought process with showing that sobering side of long life without the cleansing blood of Christ.
In Jordan's case, she is not just a mother, she's a grandmother and about to become a great-grandmother. And normally, especially looking at it from a human perspective, but it would be the same for the Magda, there's an understanding, if you've lived long enough to have these additional generations, then you're getting older, and that's okay, because, people don't normally live forever in a mortal existence, and that's okay, and we usually measure our worth through our experiences. We change over time as we understand, I'm not a 20-year-old anymore, but that's okay, because, I've been married for X number of years, or I've got this much experience in what I do, either as an author or whatever you do. And so you can you have the reward of your experiences to say, yeah, I'm older, but that's okay. But with Jordan, she's older. She's seeing other people getting older, but she's not. And there really is this question. It's like, am I going to outlive everybody that I know? And when you put that element in a mortal existence, in Snowfire's case, it was enough to almost drive her crazy. But then you compare that against the Christian view, where we're going to live in eternity with God the Father and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and that we're going to get new immortal bodies, and we're going to live forever in the presence of God. And that is joy itself. To me, that's an unspoken comparison in this.
One thing you mentioned, and I have to, of course, go to the scriptures, we were talking about how the mortality that we'll one day pull off is going to be with God in heaven. And I have to go to 1 Corinthians 15, 52 to 54. In the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. So when this corruptible shall put on incorruption, and this mortal shall put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. And see, for Jordan, because of the seemingly long eternal life that she may or may not have, because that's vague, this is something that weighs on her, even though she doesn't quite understand that, because death for her is not swallowed up in victory, because she has the possibility of seeing all the people that she loves die. And so that's one aspect of her story here, is Jordan's deliverance. Is she going to be delivered from this existence? But it's the sobering thought. And like you said, Snowfire, which is quote-unquote her mother, if you will, because she did receive blood transfusion from her, Snowfire, it drove her crazy because she fell in love. She had children in the Makta mythology, and then those children died. And then she looked and she's still here, and I'm still alive, and all the people I love are gone, and so it drove her insane, which is kind of why her name, even Snowfire, you have the rage of ice and the rage of fire just mixed all together, which is what I thought was a personification of rage that she had too. And so along with that, something has happened. So she's dealing with just her personal thoughts, being the chief judge, taking care of the Makta tribe. One thing that happened in book 1, I hope it's not a spoiler, Alan, but in book 1, she heard a voice say, if I told you to stay here forever, would you do it? And then we have book 3 where she's still here. So that's one thing that happened that she has to struggle with. The other thing is that at the events in book 2, there is a threat looming over the Makta people. And this threat is another culture. Tell us about this culture and what's going on. Again, I don't mind spoiling a little bit of book 2, but not too much. You know what I mean? So let's go ahead and give a little taste of that.
Well, there's actually 2 elements of that. The immediate is that there's the race of beings that brought Jordan and her mother to Algoran in the first place, and the Makta called them the Kital, and they actually go by another name. And I won't spoil the events in book 1, but essentially it seemed like there weren't any more of these beings except for Zitra, who belonged to that race, but she basically abandoned what they were all about and was invited to join the Makta tribe by then Chiefess Kitchenor. And she actually, integrated and became a part of that. And she's part of the story in book 3, too, because there's another branch of those aliens. It's the same race as the Kital, but we find out that they actually went off to colonize another world. So they weren't there when the bad stuff happened in Jordan's world. And so they come back and they find the only one of their people that they can find, Zitra, and they want to know what happened. And so Zitra's got she doesn't really have dual loyalties. Her loyalty is to the Makta and the family that she's raised there. But at the same time, to protect them, she's going to have to go through her own trials in this. And so there's that aspect, but then there's also the potential down the road of the Ghoulstop people that were in Book 2, Jordan's Arrow, but in all fairness, probably won't see them for quite a while.
Yeah, the events in Book 2 really let us know that the Ghoulstop, which I thoroughly enjoyed their whole culture, the Ghoulstop, they definitely have a bone to pick. They have a bone to pick with the Magda. I have no idea where he's going to go with the story, and authors love that type of mystery to leave us fans hanging by the skin of our teeth. As you can tell, the story has a lot of depth, and Allen and I are doing our very best we can to not give away too much because we want you to definitely enjoy this series, but there's so much to this series to enjoy. So even some of the little bitty things we told you, that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of the tales of Jordan and her experiences and adventures on Algoran. So what we're going to do is take a quick short break, and when we come back, we're going to delve some more into Jordan's Deliverance, some more of the setting that I particularly enjoyed as we come to the conclusion of the series. And so go ahead and just stay right there, and we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Question: if you write a book, everybody will rush out to buy it. Obvious answer: no. If you were a celebrity or if you had a huge marketing budget, then maybe you can get a lot of exposure for your book. Another solution would be to check out joeytweets.com. joeytweets.com is a promotion and marketing service with access to over 1/3 followers on Twitter. joeytweets.com has 3 packages available to fit any budget. That's joeytweets.com. joeytweets.com. Get some serious exposure for your books.
We're back with the Queen of Tuesday Night and her guests. Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. We are talking today to my guest co-host and contributor, Allen Steadham. He is the author of the book, Jordan's Deliverance, Book 3 of the exciting Jordan of Algoran series. This is hot off the press, just released today online. We want to thank Ambassador International for just giving us great fiction to read. Make sure you go ahead and visit their website at ambassador-international.com, and make sure you go to amazon.com and pick up your copy of the entire series, starting with Jordan's World and then going into Jordan's Arrow. And now we have Jordan's Deliverance. And as you can tell, we've been really tiptoeing, trying to make sure we don't give away too many spoilers about this wonderful series. But it's almost impossible not to just tell you some aspects that you may have missed in Book 1 and 2, because when you read Jordan's Deliverance, her whole arc comes to fruition and the reason why she was dumped on this planet. But one thing that happens is that Jordan in Book 3 has to go back to Earth, and she hasn't been to Earth in about 40 years. So, Allen, once again, thanks for being on the show. Tell us about what happened when Jordan goes back to Earth. She has to go back to Earth on a particular mission.
Basically, the setup here is that the Ketal have come back. Jordan fears that once they learn what happened to their brethren that were on Algoran, that they're going to attack the Magda, and they have advanced weaponry. This is the sci-fi part of the series. They've got a spaceship or two. They've got weapons that could literally destroy the Magda Mountain and everybody and everything on it. So Jordan is, at the beginning of the book, is consulting with one of the elders, and the Magda are all about storytelling, but there's often elements of truth, even in something that's like an old legend. And so in listening to some of these stories and talking with this elder, Jordan becomes convinced that there is something on Earth that was sent away by the Ketal, that it was some kind of forbidden knowledge, some kind of forbidden information that was so terrible that it had to be sent to Earth. And she thinks she knows where it is. She takes the risk. She's got a teleport machine left over from Book 1, and is going to go to Earth to try and find this. But that presents its own set of challenges. It's been actually closer to 50 years since she has been to Earth. She doesn't know what to expect. She knows where to go, but there's no guarantees in this. And so literally she goes, and she's not even used to the effect of going through this portal that connects Algoran to Earth. It's like, I don't know if you remember the old sci-fi show Sliders, but it highlighted very well the idea that if you send people through this energy tunnel, they're not necessarily going to just spring out and land on their feet, and they're probably going to be thrown. That's what happens, and we have kind of a Wonder Woman moment there, because Jordan comes out and she's right in front of a bus that's coming towards her, and she's got a choice: either stand there and do nothing or try and survive. She does what nobody would do and puts her hands out and stops the bus, causing it to basically kind of explode around her. And nobody's on the bus, so don't worry, she doesn't kill anybody. But thankfully, But then she runs into somebody there, and it turns out that it's a relative. It's fascinating because she doesn't even she has to think about whether she recognizes English or not. That's how long it's been since she spoke it. She's been speaking Makta for 50 years, and it starts off like that. And on top of it, this is not a big spoiler, but she gets there, and the device that brought her there and could get her back kind of goes smash on the road. So she's stuck there for the time being. There's a lot of things go wrong immediately. You would think, hey, everything's going to go right. We're going to go do this. It's going to be all fixed, and everything's going to be great, right? No, this is Allen Steadham's work. Things don't go perfectly. So
right, in the real world too.
Exactly. If it's in the real world, if this stuff existed, chances are at the speeds that you go through this tunnel, and I mean, it would be a wonder for people to even survive some of this stuff. So, and that's how it starts. But it gave a chance to really go back and touch on some of the threads of Jordan's family from book one, and to show how a lot changes in 50 years. I mean, you think of it, how much has changed just in the last 20 years technologically for us, in the present day. You go back 30 years, no internet, you go back, or rather there was internet, but it was over like bulletin board systems, and there was no graphic user interfaces and things, all things that we take for granted now. Well, I wanted to do the same, but I didn't want to make it, wildly different. But I think, showing that there was some changes in technology, changes in the way people speak, changes in what's important to people, and then showing what's the same. Just not to make any of it radically different, but I wanted to make it believable. And it's up to you, the reader, to determine, how good I did or not. But it was fascinating to plot that out.
Family is extremely important to the Makta. Relationships are extremely important, which is also a concept with tribal cultures in general, because the Makta is a tribal culture. And then when she goes to Earth, and various relatives are like, oh my gosh, the aunt that was missing is now here. And they're like, oh, we're too busy. And I remember being kind of shot in the chest with that, like, oh my gosh, they just said that the one you haven't seen in this long is here, and you're too busy. But she understood it. She did understand it, but it hurt, but she understood it. And I started thinking about my granny. For me, those of you who know, I post about my granny a lot, and not having that opportunity to see her when I want to see her. And I was just like, oh my gosh, we really need to focus on how important family is. And so her whole mindset had changed, where maybe had she stayed on Earth, she would not have had that same understanding about the importance of family. And I love how in this whole series, family is extremely important. And family is not always of blood either. One thing the Makta do, they accept people from different places. Like, they don't even blink. They just say, oh, he has green skin. It's nice. It's rather nice. I like your gray hair there. They just are very accepting of people, and you're a Makta when you become part of the Makta tribe. And I like the fact that you do have that interbreeding, because the Katal, they have a completely different view about that. I don't know if we should go into it or not. Well, I'll think about it. But
we can say this much. We can say this much. Just the Katal, they're isolationists. That's shown from the beginning. That's one of the reasons they have this advanced technology in the first place, is that after a great war from many, 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 many years ago, all of Algoran was changed, and that's why everything is so primitive, because of this great war that happened like 10,000 years ago. This is mentioned throughout the series, so this is not a major spoiler because it's kind of a mystery too. The Kital managed to hold on to and build upon their technology. They're the ones who created the technology to go to other worlds in the first place. But nobody else has this technology. Nobody else even has the equivalent of electricity. But that was on purpose because these people, stayed to themselves and literally made it against the law to marry or breed with others on Algoran, which is pretty darn racist. So they're driven by a different cultural mindset. Again, it's up to the reader to view what that means to you. But it played an important part because, you've got others like the Makta that are, open and accepting of everybody. And strangely enough, the Kital and the Makta influenced each other, but can't go any more detailed than that because that would go into spoilers.
And that was another thing, too, that I found very interesting, that you would think with this higher technology that the Kital have, they would have a better perspective, and they didn't. And you have the Makta who don't have this higher technology getting it. And even when Jordan in the first book, when she comes there, they treat her. They know that she can't talk in their language. They certainly can't talk in hers, And so we'll wait it out. We'll just wait it out. Eventually, you'll understand. A is Aka, or whatever,
Yeah.
So they'll understand the language too. And so that's why what eventually happens is that over the course of the 3 books, Jordan's whole mindset changes because of her experiences with the Makta to where she's more Makta than she is Earthling. And this becomes extremely important, I think, just as like with the gospel, how he turns us into new creatures because we become more like him as opposed to who we are in the world. And so I found that an interesting parallel, even though it's a tribal culture. And it's not like you're making it seem as if a tribal culture is so much more better than technology. It's the motivations behind the culture. Because some of the other cultures in the book, like the Gustav, they were a tribal culture too, but they were crazy. And so it's like, so you have this thing, but it's not, conquerors, they were crazy and nut jobs. They really were. And so you kind of sit there like, okay, this isn't, it's not the tribe itself, it's the motivations behind the tribe. So another aspect I want to touch on quickly, when Jordan is on Earth, and we were talking about how the sobering thought of her living such a long time, she actually gets a chance to experience some of that grief. We're not going to say what happened or with the person or anything like that, but she experiences that grief, and it overwhelms her. And I felt sad for her as well because, people that she knew were no longer there. And she's like, and it hurt her. And so imagine just having the pain here on Earth, and then she's now going back, hopefully she goes back to Algoran, to her people, the Makta, and having that still sobering thought that, oh my gosh, I'm going to live longer than the people I love.
Basically kind of is a foreshadowing. It's sort of like a confirmation of the dread that she's been having since Jordan's arrow. Like, am I going to have to see, all these? What's it going to be like for these people to grow older and not be here? And then she gets to see some of that up close and personal and feel that, and then it doesn't even have to be thought or spoken. You just kind of understand and feel with her. Is this what it's going to be like? Am I going to have to continue to experience this grief over and over again and only be sustained by the little short good things, a new grandchild being born or a great-grandchild being born, but then you're going to have to go through the same thing with them too. So, just that's that sobering, that realness of it. I think that it does help to bring out the idea that being immortal in a mortal world would not be the great grand thing that some people view it as.
And that's the thing too. And I like the fact that you show that immortality in this world, in this body, in this way is not a blessing that we wanted it to be. It's not that. And I love that aspect of here. So let's travel back. Eventually, we won't say what happened, but, we eventually go back to Algoran. And again, I'm being careful with my words because there's so much going on in this book. And so when they go back to Algoran, Jordan now has what she needs, but it's not in the way that people think. And one thing I liked about this series was that people were vague in their evilness, if you will. Like Snowfire is consumed with rage. Yeah. But some part of her rage is justified. The Mata, her people, and she's going to protect her children. And then you have the Katal. When you find out the Katal, there's two factions at war here. And so the Katal is like, cousin It hadn't done what they're supposed to do. We wouldn't be having this problem now. It's kind of like that. Right. So there's these things happening that Jordan's Deliverance really delivers on connecting these together. Because like I said, too, when you find out why Jordan and her mom were picked up and thrown on Algoran in book 1 and book 3, you seriously go, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So there's a lot going on here in the story. There's one more element here I want to talk about, because if I say too much, we're going to give away a lot of spoilers, and we don't. But there's another character, Erica, that I want to talk about. And Erica represents those who are unbelievers. But her unbelief is not necessarily just a stubbornness. It's because she's been disappointed in life, and she's been disappointed in God. And I think that's okay. I think I have to say it, and correct me where I'm wrong, Alan, our emotions are emotions. They're very real. They're not always right, though. But if I can say it like this, there have been times we have been disappointed in God because he hasn't done the things that we want him to do. You know what I'm saying? But
I'll say that people feel that way, and I understand. It's all about our expectations. I'm going to be straight up with you and say I have never been disappointed in God, but I can understand if people had expectations, and depending on their situations and what's happened, I can understand people feeling disappointed or people being discouraged because of the way life turns out, and the fact that God doesn't always say yes to our prayers. And that's usually for our good, but we can't always see that. And that's tough sometimes, because sometimes we really want things to work out a certain way, and it doesn't. That's just life, because God knows better than we do, but it's hard to accept that. And so when people can't accept God's will for their life, they're going to be frustrated. They're going to be upset. They might even get mad. And that's human.
I was using that term and lightly as way, but I think it's true, because Erica, her character is just upset. She ended up having an okay life when she came to Algoran too, and then things happen, and she gets disappointed. That's like the only way I can describe it. She actually goes into a depression, and she sits there. And when she sees Jordan again after Jordan comes back to Earth, Jordan is not has some things have happened to her, and Jordan's like, you need to trust God. And she's like, how can I? Basically, in her mind, she's like, how can I? But she can't wave away the things that have happened to Jordan and just say, well, that just happened and some quote-unquote scientific reason.
Right.
She can't just do that.
Right.
And so she's forced to kind of come to grips with her doubt. And I actually like that, because I think there are some atheists and non-believers out there who, and I'm going to say disappointed in God. I've never been disappointed in God. I know God has been disappointed in me, but I've never been disappointed in God. And I'm being honest. I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
I've been upset with the Lord. I've been mad with him, but I won't say I've been disappointed. But I know others have felt that way, and I'm not going to act like that's not the case. But with Erica, she is forced to come to, I want to say, a fork in the road about her beliefs, particularly when she sees Jordan again.
The thing about Erica's character is defined for most of the series by the things that happen to her. She's always reacting to things. And so, she had abusive parents. That's just the only way to put it, because her father lived, a certain lifestyle and cheated on her mother, and then that drove her mother crazy, and her mother ended up in prison. And so basically she disowned her mother. Her father committed suicide. I mean, you've just got all these terrible things that made her not even want to stay on Earth. And so she had an opportunity in Jordan's world, and that's how she got to Algoran. But it's just a series of disappointments. And then she got to Algoran and she got separated from Jordan immediately. So there's another disappointment. And then she gets taken in by a very deceptive tribe. And so they're fooling her. They're actually drugging her to think they're going to keep her under their control. And they managed to for years. And so there's that. And then she finds out that she's been betrayed by these people that she thought were taking her in and taking care of her. And so it just, all of these types of things, happen. And like you said, she had a period of time where things went well for her, but then life happens. And one of the things that I hope comes through in the overall series is that we all have to face these things, but Jordan has a little bit of an edge because even though she's not a believer yet in the majority of the series, but she does acknowledge God. She believes there is a God, and she has choices to make that are based on that. And by book 3, she even prays. And the Lord intervenes. We see that. And so she's got a comfort that Erica doesn't. But the thing that I really wanted to bring out in this book is that Erica could have that comfort. Anybody can have that comfort. We all have our reasons for either believing or not believing, and they're usually based on our experiences.
I was pulling up Isaiah 55 when you said that, because a lot of things did happen to Erica that were unfortunate. But I think about Jordan. She was, again, thrown onto another world, had nothing to do about it, had nothing to say about it. Literally the book 1 begins, she's sleeping, and someone busts through her door, throws onto this world. But Jordan technically does have a better attitude towards it. And I was thinking about Erica, and I was thinking about Isaiah 55:6. He says, "Seek ye the Lord while he may be found. Call ye upon him while he is near." And I know we have to put the scripture in context, but I can't help but see how this also applies to people out there. Like you said, Jordan believed in God. She didn't know maybe who he was exactly, but she prayed to him. And one thing, the Lord will answer those who seek him. And then it goes on further, "Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. And let him return unto the Lord, and he will have mercy upon him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon." And so we have this happening in Isaiah many years before the events in the New Testament. And I can't help but see that parallel with Jordan's life and Erica's life, because they represent two different sides of the same coin. And so with Erica, she's at a point in her life by book 3 where she can't keep running from it. She can't keep letting things come in play to stop her from thinking about it. She's at a point now she has to just come face to face with her unbelief and her doubt and see what she's going to do about it. And I think that's all I want to say about that, because again, I don't want to give away any spoilers of the book. But you did an excellent job, Alan, with showing that sort of you did an excellent job doing that. And so my next question, Alan, is, now that we have these characters and their story, my next question is, do you plan on extending this universe? And if you do, what can we expect from it?
Well, at this point, this is it for now. Unless the Lord gives me specific inspiration, I don't move without the Lord. Okay. So this is where we're at. Some things are left to the imagination, but the beauty of it is, and I think the most important thing is, this is the Jordan of Algoran series. So, this concludes Jordan's part of the story. If it's the Lord's will that we show something about Erica down the road, or if we show something about Jordan's descendants, or even how the events in this book led to changes on Algoran. If the Lord gives that to me, then that's what I'll write. But I don't have specific plans right now for that.
Yeah. And like I said, when I was talking offline, I really enjoyed the whole series. There's a lot of material here that you expand on. And sometimes it's okay to not have every answer. It's okay because it lets the reader kind of delve into the story and everything else. So, Allen, once again, we're at the top of the hour here. So once again, I want to thank you so much for letting me showcase the entire series on the right stuff. It's been a joy to read. And you already know I'm a fan. I can't wait to, when I have a chance to pick up Mindfire, because I know Mindfire is another book you're going to be writing. I know you're writing some other books and some other stuff. I've been watching your Facebook and everything else. But I've really, really enjoyed following this series, really enjoyed these characters, the story. I really like the fact that I became fully vested into these characters as I follow this trilogy. For those of you who want to pick up the entire series, make sure you pick it up on Amazon.com. You pick up Jordan's World, Jordan's Arrow, Jordan's Deliverance. Once you pick up the entire series, you'll get what I mean about becoming vested into what's going on here, because so many things have happened to Jordan, and you're like, wow, this book is amazing. These books are just amazing. So go ahead, pick up your copy of the entire series from Amazon.com or from Ambassador International. Go to ambassador-international.com. So, Allen, in the few moments we have left, go ahead and give us your social media outlets so we can connect with you.
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to start with my website, allensteadham.com, ALLENSTEADHAM.com. I'm also on Facebook. I have an author page. It's facebook.com/JASPEC-Fiction, JASPEC Fiction. And I have a Twitter. That's at Mindfire Novel. That's all one word. And I am on Instagram. It's instagram.com/Allen Steadham. That's all one word. And I am always happy to interact on social media, through my website, email, anything. And just grateful for the opportunity to talk with you again, Parker, and I appreciate it.
Allen, thank you so much for being with us on the show today. As I always ask, give some encouraging words out there to our aspiring author.
Well, I think the best thing that I can say is just continue to lean on the Lord. And, even if you're in the midst of a dry spell or writer's block or anything, just pray and ask the Lord for the inspiration. And then just wait and see what he'll do, because you won't be disappointed and you'll be more fulfilled in waiting on the Lord. And just keep doing what you're doing.
Allen, once again, thank you so much for being with me on the show today, and I cannot wait to have you back and have you back real soon.
Thank you very much.
And we were talking today to Allen Steadham. He is the author of the series Jordan of Algoran, the first book, Jordan's World, the second book, Jordan's Arrow, and the third book that just released today, Jordan's Deliverance, is available on Amazon.com or wherever books are sold. I'm telling you right now, you're going to enjoy this series. It's a wonderful series that has some nuggets of truth, just adventure, lots of good things happening in this series. Like I told you before, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and the conclusion just leaves you satisfied, although you will have lots of questions. And so Allen said earlier, he said he doesn't know where the Lord is going to lead him with the series, if this is it, or if the Lord is going to say, hey, now it's time to pick up the threads again. We don't know. That's the exciting part about being an author, when you ask the Lord to lead you in that path. You don't know where you're going either. You just trust him and trust him fully. Thank you so much for joining me for this edition of The Right Stuff. You have a wonderful, absolutely glorious, blessed day, and God bless.